I'm going to show how to create a walking skeleton on patrol for this game. So just as a demonstration, I've got on the screen there's something called Skeleton Spawner 08, and if I zoom in on this and preview the play, you can see that a skeleton spawns and then is walking toward a waypoint. And let's show the it's a clone of a skeleton 08. If I show the state machine, it's going to waypoint 22. Once it hits waypoint 22, it's going to waypoint 23. As it goes to waypoint 23, it should turn around, go to waypoint 24. So it's on its way to waypoint 23. And now it's going to waypoint 24. It's going to go back to waypoint 23 and then back to waypoint 22. Now, one thing that I have built into this is that if the skeleton collides with the water, which is over here, it will destroy itself. If it collides with the water, it will spawn a new skeleton and then destroy itself. If it collides with the player, after it collides with the water, it will spawn another skeleton and destroy itself. So I can just show how it's going to destroy itself by dragging this clone into the water. It destroys itself, and then over here a new skeleton spawns and then follows the same path as the original. Over here in the hierarchy, you can see that this is now the second clone of Skeleton Animated 08. So what I would like to do is to make Skeleton Animated 09 and make another system of waypoints and spawners for Skeleton 09. So the first thing I need to do is go down to my prefabs, and I have several prefab skeletons here, and I'm going to take Skeleton Animated 8, drag it up to the hierarchy, and then drag it back down to the prefabs list, and that way I can create, basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a duplicate of this Skeleton Animated 08. With prefabs, you can't just click on an object and there's no choice to duplicate, so the only way to duplicate it is to create an instance of the object, drag it back into prefabs to create a new one, and then just delete that instance from the hierarchy. So I want to rename my new skeleton prefab as Skeleton Animated 09. And then what I would like to do is to go back to this state machine called Smooth Look At. This is the state machine that I've already set up to follow or to patrol a path. Basically, it's patrolling a path between different waypoints. So this state machine shows that the state machine, once it spawns, it's going to waypoint 22, 23, 24, and then back to 23 and back to 22. So it'll follow kind of a circular, or since there's three waypoints, it'll follow a sort of a triangular path. But it also is set up to follow the player when the player gets within a certain range. I think it's about set up for 20 units. Yes, when the player gets within 20 units, then the skeleton will break from its predetermined path toward the waypoints, will go toward the player. If it hits the player, the skeleton will disappear and a new one will spawn. So what I'm going to do before I do anything with this look at state FSM is I'm going to go to where it says skeleton collisions. And one of the biggest challenges I've had with this game is getting the skeletons to spawn in the correct place, because the animated skeletons are prefabs. That you cannot link a prefab to a regular game object in the hierarchy. They can only be linked to other prefabs or else to variables. So in order for me to be able to get this skeleton to spawn in the correct place, I need to get the property of the new spawner that I'm going to create and get that as a game object variable. So what I need to do now is to go to the hierarchy, and I need to duplicate this skeleton 08. I'm calling it skeleton 08 package. It's just an empty game object that contains the spawner and 3 waypoints. So I'm going to duplicate that. It's skeleton package 9 to go with skeleton animated 09. I'm going to rename the spawner skeleton spawner 09, and then I'm going to rename these waypoints because otherwise the skeletons are going to get confused, and if there's 2 waypoint 22s or 2 waypoint 23s, it's not really going to know where to go. So the last one we had was waypoint 24. I'm going to start with waypoint 25 through 27 for this one. So I'm just renaming the waypoints. Okay, and then skeleton spawner. I want to spawn skeleton. So since I duplicated the spawner 08, the game object that it's specified to create is skeleton animated 08. I'm going to replace that with skeleton animated 09. Spawn point automatically changed to reflect the new spawner. And I already have variables, global variables set up for the spawner and for the waypoints. I set them up ahead of time. I just created them in advance so that it would be a little quicker. And what this one is set up is to find the global variable called spawner 08. Well, this is spawner 09, so I'm going to replace spawner 08 with spawner 09. And just make sure I have everything right there. Okay, now to the waypoints. I'm going to go to waypoint 25. I have a global variable set up for this. Waypoint 25 replaced waypoint 22, so I'm going to go ahead and replace that. And then I'll just do the same thing with the other 2 waypoints. Okay, so I have my waypoints set up with the correct variables. I have my spawner set up with the correct variable. So now it is time to go to the skeleton animated 09. And what I need to do here is I've got 2 places where the skeleton will spawn after it hits an object, the water or the player, and then it destroys itself. So For the water collision, spawn skeleton. If I go to that state, I see get property. There's nothing in there right now. What I need to do is get the property of skeleton spawner 09. So when I drag skeleton spawner 09 from the hierarchy, I'm prompted to get property. So it gives me a new action. I'm going to delete the original, and I am going to get the property, which is a game object. And then for store game object, I'm going to choose my global variable called spawner 09. Now what I need to do is replace, I need to check every frame. Now what I need to do is replace my spawn point with the correct variable, spawner 09. What I can do is copy this action for the other state that will spawn the skeleton. And then for store game object, I'm choosing the correct, oh, well, that was already set that way. This create object, global spawner 08, I'm going to replace that with spawner 09. So that should be set up correctly. Now what I need to do is go to my FSM state machine called smooth look at, and this is the state machine that tells the skeleton once it's spawned to patrol along these waypoints and to follow either the waypoint or follow the player. So since I duplicated this skeleton from skeleton 08, it's got the waypoints from the previous spawner. I need to replace these with the current ones. So the first one is 25, the second one is 26, the third one is 27. So I'll go ahead and replace those, rename them, I should say. And then within each state, I need to replace the target object. So since go to waypoint 25 was originally waypoint 22, I'm replacing the target object now with 25. And again, these are global variables that I've already entered, so they're all set up for me. I don't have to go to the variables menu and put those in each time. And this is a place where I've kind of screwed up before. It's very easy to kind of lose your place and forget which state that you're on, or zone out a little bit and put the wrong waypoint variable in there. So I've done that, and if that happens, the skeleton will follow the wrong, will go to the wrong waypoint. So if after setting up this little system of waypoints and spawner, if it doesn't work correctly, if the object, or in my case the skeleton, appears to be going to the wrong place, the first thing I would do is check to make sure that I have all my variables chosen correctly for the correct state. So what this action is telling the object, which is in this case the animated skeleton to look at waypoint 27 and then move toward it. The ones in between are telling it to also to get the distance from the skeleton to the player, and if the distance is less than 20 units, then to go ahead and move toward the player, in which case it would go to the follow player state. Okay, so I'm just going to double check that I chose the correct variables for these states, because like I said, it's very easy to enter the wrong ones, especially when I'm talking. Okay, it looks like everything's correct, so just double check one more time that I have the correct variables also chosen for the spawn. And it looks like I do, so now I'm going to select my empty game object, which I'm calling skeleton package. It contains all the pieces, parts for this little system here. And I just duplicated it directly over my skeleton spawner 08, and I need to find a place to position this. I'm going to drag it out so you can see it, so I can see it as well. And if I have this empty game object selected, it shows my spawner, which is another empty game object, and then it shows my waypoints, which are just spheres that have the mesh renderer turned off, but when it's selected you can see them, and I can get a sense of the position of them. And I think what I'm going to do is place these, let's see, place these over here, kind of along the water's edge. Okay. So I'm going to check each one to make sure that it is above the level of the terrain, or kind of just sitting right on top of the terrain, because if it is below the terrain, or even kind of halfway buried below the terrain, the skeleton animation tends to want to, I don't know, it has an effect where it sort of pushes down or does not want to move forward because it's kind of trying to walk through the terrain, and it can't do that. So it's very important to just, if the terrain is not perfectly level, which mine is not, it's very important to make sure that you check to position these above the terrain. And you don't want to, you kind of want them just sitting on top. These are not affected by gravity or anything like that. They're just kind of positioned. And they don't have to be exact either. Skeleton spawner should, well, let's see, this one is going to spawn not in a very good spot. Let me go back here. It's going to spawn behind this wall, and I really don't want that. That's not going to work out too well. It's going to end up, you know, just kind of getting stuck in this wall. So I'm going to move this out a little bit. And also I want to make sure that the position of my spawner is really, it's not too high, it's not too low. I don't want my skeleton to spawn below the level of the terrain, but I don't want it to look like it's jumping down from the sky either. So this is probably about okay. So what I would like is for a skeleton to spawn from this point here. Move to waypoint 25, which I'm going to move out a little bit. And let me check the height of that. Positioning. Then it will move to waypoint 26 if this is set up correctly. And then it, from waypoint 26, it should move to waypoint 27, and the next thing to do is to play and test this out. So I'm going to zoom in on this spawner, hit play. Okay, there it goes. Skeleton spawned correctly, and it is moving toward the first waypoint, and let's find that clone of that skeleton. This is skeleton 09. You can see that it, okay, I missed it, but it did go to waypoint 25, and now it's on its way to waypoint 26. And you can see this white line with the arrow at the end is showing the direction that the skeleton is moving, and it is moving toward the spawner, which is invisible. Okay, now it moves on to go to waypoint 27. Once it goes to waypoint 27, it will turn around and go back to waypoint 26. Again, if I have all the variables correctly selected and everything is all correct. Okay, there it goes. So now what I'd like to do, I'm pretty confident that it's going to go back to the start and do the whole circuit again, but now what I'm going to do is test out the collision and see if the skeleton, once it destroys itself, that it will spawn in the correct position. So I've got skeleton spawner over here. I am going to just go ahead and manually drag this skeleton into the water. Okay, there it goes, collided with the water, disappeared or destroyed itself, and now it reappeared or respawned at the correct spawn point. So the only way to ensure that the skeleton, or whatever it is that you're working with, whatever type of object that you have that you would like to patrol an area like this using waypoints, the only way to ensure that it will spawn in the correct spot is to use these global variables. Another way to say it, the only way to be sure that a prefab will spawn from a game object placed in the hierarchy, such as the skeleton spawner 09, is to attach a global variable to it. And if we go down to the bottom of the hierarchy, we can see that we are now on the second animated skeleton 09 clone, because it says clone twice. And his second clone is happily walking along. I've got some other ones set up here, so thank you for watching.